Hello, Movie Mavens, and welcome back to the B Movies channel. My name is Bailey, and I put the B in movies. So first of all, up top, happy Friday the 13th. The Halloween gods blessed us this year, and we got a Friday the 13th in October yet again. So I hope that you're doing something spooky, getting a Friday the 13th tattoo or two, watching the marathon that I'm sure is on Fear Fest for AMC for I Miss You Cable just for that. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful Friday the 13th. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And so to kick us off this week, let's get started with the blog roundup. So Monday, we talked about the Halloween franchise. It's one of my favorite franchises. There's a piece that'll come out later on where I do a whole John Carpenter spotlight. I can't say good enough things about the Halloween franchise, minus Halloween Ends, which, if you know me at all, you know how much I hated that movie, and I'm actually really glad that I did not spend money on a ticket. I am a theater girly through and through, but I'm so happy that I just watched it on Peacock instead because I was so mad. And that's a whole other tangent for a whole other video. On Tuesday, we talked about my favorite animated movies and Halloween specials, and that will be one of our deep dives today. It's not going to be a huge deep dive on this one, but like I did in last week's video, I just want to start doing maybe 2 deep dives. I know that y'all like longer videos, so I definitely want to give y'all as much content as possible, especially in the best month of the year. And then on Wednesday, we talked about new metal movies like The Blair Witch Project 2, Book of Shadows. Flip it, and in the words of Missy Elliott, let me flip that thing back and reverse it. It's actually Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. We want to be specific. The 13 Ghosts remake with Matthew Lillard and Tony Shalhoub. All of those types of movies where the soundtrack, it's very new metal. And they just definitely have that stank on it. Queen of the Damned is another one where it's just... I don't know how to describe new metal movies outside of Slipknot, Korn. Think of that type of style, but in a movie. On Thursday, we talked about Vintage 8, which is actually going to be our other deep dive today on their YouTube channel. I'm going to go through some of my favorite series. I could make an hours-long video on Vintage 8. Their style is so unique. We'll get into it in a little bit. Love them, and I will link their channel in the description box, but we will talk about them in a second. They're great. And then today, we obviously talked about the Friday the 13th franchise. If you read the blog, you know, and my brother-in-law's probably gonna kill me, the Friday the 13th franchise, it just isn't my favorite. I haven't connected with it in a way. I've seen all of them. I love Jason X. I love New Beginning. But I've never marathoned them the way that I have like Scream or Halloween, but I definitely respect and salute them. And then tomorrow on the B Movies blog, because as a reminder, for October, we will be doing 7 straight days of content. So you're going to get 6 blogs and a bite-sized Sunday because I had so much content planned. Elliot and I just couldn't stand to not give y'all 6 days of content. So tomorrow, we will be talking about I Am Not Your Final Girl. It's a book of poetry, I think is the best way to put it. It's not quite prose, but it's poems. It's by Claire C. Holland, and every poem is about a final girl, whether it's an actual final girl or a girl within a movie that made a really big impact on her that didn't survive but just really resonated with her. And it's one of the coolest things I've ever read. I recommend it to people all the time, and I just think that it's a very cool concept. And so it's our first, excuse me, like I talked about in the last video too, I always get wig hair in my face. And I'm just like, whew. And it's just very cool. And then for Bite Size Sunday, for those who don't know, Bite Size Sunday is an Instagram exclusive. It's usually, with the exception of this month, it's usually an Instagram post on a piece of content that I watch, a TV show, a movie, that I don't have a full piece for, but that I still want to talk about. And so those are Instagram exclusive. They don't live on the blog, and you only get a teaser here. So we don't release a teaser on our Instagram at bmovies channel, same as our YouTube. But you get a little teaser here when you watch the videos. And so the teaser for today, I feel like there are people who probably hate me because they're not straightforward teasers, but I have fun writing them. And the only person I have to answer to is Elliot, and Elliot knows them. So the teaser is going to be, I say nah, 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 nah. And I would say to think about where that comes from, like what song that comes from, and think about the whole concept of that song. And you should be able to get it. And for those who don't know, for October, Bite Size Sunday, instead of one piece of content, it's actually a list of 10 movies. So it's a curated list of 10 within a theme. So like last week's, for example, was For the Girls Horror, which was a great concept given to me by Lido, my tattoo artist. Shout out to them. That was a wonderful idea. And so all of the movies, it was like Jennifer's Body, Freaky, movies like For a Girls Night, or like how Lido presented it, it's like Barbie Dreamhouse, Halloween. So like Jennifer's Body, Freaky, just movies that are for the girls. And so that's what you can look forward to. Week before last, actually swap that. That was week before last. This, last week's, it was, what was last week? Let's just take a look. Last week's was Nostalgic Halloween. And so it was things like the Scooby-Doo Project, which we'll talk about today too, because don't even get me started on the Scooby-Doo Project. The McDonald's VHS, so just things like that are very nostalgic. Halloween I grew up in the 90s, 90s to the mid-aughts, but things like that are like, my sister is 15 years older than me, so I grew up with a lot of 70s and 80s influences, so just very nostalgic Halloween pieces. So just to give you an idea, all of them are curated lists instead of one piece of content. So that's what my hint for this week is I say nah, 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 nah. So we've done our blog roundup. We've given our Bite Size Sunday hint. Some exciting news. I'm actually getting a new camera, so that should be fun. I know that the video, the ring light and the neon sign sometimes don't play nicely together, but some of these issues should be resolved. So we're getting a new camera. Very excited. Talked to Elliot about it. Talked to a coworker about it who works with video stuff. They said it was good, so looking forward to that. So that's just that. Editing wise, the plan is starting in November, I'm going to try to get a little more creative with our editing, so like actually putting pictures on screens and things. October is just, for me, if you know me, you know how busy I am in October. If you don't know me, since it's my favorite month of the year, I pack so much stuff into October. Like, I was booked through October basically by the second week of September, if not a little earlier. So it's just so busy, and I just want to get content out to y'all. And so, like Elliot and I have talked about before, we would rather just have videos that have a good quality of content and then have editing be second string. But the holiday season, and especially, with the holiday season coming up, I have some PTO coming up, so I'm really going to start trying to get some editing for y'all. So those are things to look forward to. New camera, check. New editing, who is she? So thank you so much. So with all of the housekeeping out of the way, let's get into the first deep dive of this video, which are my favorite animated Halloween specials. And so these are things I watch every single year. These are things that I have watched, some of them for as long as I can remember. and they're just fun. It's nostalgic. I'm just a big cartoon girly in general. I mean, for those who have seen my tattoos or know what's coming up on my tattoo list, like I love animation. I love cartoons. And so it's probably just, I grew up in such a golden age of cartoons and Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. And so I've always had a very soft spot for it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Scooby-Doo Project. If you don't know what the Scooby-Doo Project is, Cartoon Network did in the early 2000s, they did a riff on the Blair Witch Project where they made bumpers that looked like the missing persons flyers and press conferences and things like that. And then during one of their Scooby-Doo marathons during October, they released a short film called the Scooby-Doo Project. And it is, I mean, it's almost a shot for shot. Like, obviously it's a cartoon, so it's a lot shorter, but like all the references are there, like the throwing the map into the river, Shaggy and Scooby eat the map. There's just all of it's just insane. The famous shot, the famous bedroom, the famous, that's a different kind of movie. The famous basement shot, like everything. And they just riff on it. And it's very meta because they make fun of the fact that they're cartoons. There are several allusions to the fact that they are two-dimensional in a three-dimensional world. Or when they're driving through the woods, Shaggy's like, these don't look like our regular woods, because, I mean, they would run the same slates over and over again. And so I always watch it. It's on YouTube. They even have a 4K restoration on YouTube that I'll link in the description box. But it's one of the first things I watch in spooky season. Because if you're a movie lover, if you love the Blair Witch Project, or just a movie lover in general, really, you'll really appreciate this. And it's such a underrated slice of nostalgia, and you can definitely tell that I think the Adult Swim guys had a hand in it, because it feels very much of that Space Ghost Coast to Coast vibe. So definitely check it out. I'm off my soapbox now, but the Scooby-Doo Project is just wonderful. Another Halloween special for me that's an annual watch, Garfield's Halloween Adventure. It's on the infamous family. It's on my famous. Well, I talk about it a lot, so depending on who you are, it might be infamous. But my family heirloom, which is a 1986 CBS Halloween lineup recorded with all the old commercials, like the General Mills, like, have a monster for breakfast today. Like, all of those are on there. There's commercials for cricket. There's commercials. The McBucket Halloween commercial with Jason Marsden, where he's a kid and he does, like, he's a prospector and everything. And it's our family heirloom. And we'll actually, later on this season, we'll do a deep dive in one of the videos about it, as well as write a whole piece. For the first time ever, I watched my family heirloom and I share everything with it, like the best commercials, what's on it. So I am demystifying the famous Perkins family heirloom for the first time ever. So look forward to that in an upcoming piece. Next up, Halloween tree. This is one, my mom and I have talked about this before. KP, every Halloween season, she would kick it off by getting, if you grew up in North Central Texas, and you had Kroger, every year for Halloween they would do like these big sugar cookies that had royal icing on them and like different Halloween scenes. And so the rhythm would be, she would get a box or two of those, and we would rent Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and the Halloween tree. Every single year, I mean, like through high school, like until I went to college. And then the college that I went to, we had a special break in October, and she would usually do it then too. And so we would rent it from Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, or at one point there was even, I think it's called BJ's Video in the Kroger in my hometown. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but we would rent it from the video store every single year. So that it has a very special place in my heart. I have actually, I forgot I was married. When she got, trigger warning for dead mom. We all know my mom's dead at this point. She actually, I'm trying to get the best angle. There we go. She bought my sister and her and me. That was very poor grammar. Ignore that. She bought all three of us a copy of the Halloween Tree book and wrote in it. And so I got, this is Pip's pumpkin from the animated special. And then she signed Love Mom on her inscription. And so that's what this tattoo actually is and stands for. And then I have a bunch from our family VHS too. I have Garfield and the Witch from Witch's Night Out and Pillsbury Cookie, because why not? Because Halloween's just my favorite time of the year. So that just has a very nostalgic place in my heart. And then next up is actually Witch's Night Out. If you've never seen it, it's so good. And Gilda Radner is the voice of the witch. Catherine O'Hara is a voice in it. The animation style is really unique. And also, listen to my friend Bailey, their podcast Memory Static. They have an episode with some of the creators for the winter special that they did, because they only ever got 2 specials released. And so definitely check that out. I'll link that episode in the description box as well so that you can hear Bailey's discussion with them. But that just, it's on the Heirloom, and it's so fun, and it's an annual watch. On my list also, the Graveyard Shift special of SpongeBob. The older I get, the more I realize it's the height of comedy. The Nosferatu joke at the end is so it's just such absurdist humor, and it's so funny. And I realize, like, between that and stuff like Space Ghost Coast, I'm like, oh, my sense of humor has always been the same. Always been the same, for sure. So that episode I watch every year. I also watch the SpongeBob episode Christmas Who, but we'll talk about that. Listen, get your Christmas out of my Halloween, people. That's all I have to say. We barely get stuff out. We barely get stuff out anymore, and then it's Christmas at the same time, and I hate it. But we'll talk about that later. And then the last one I want to touch on, there are several others in the animated special, like the Summerween episode of Gravity Falls is an annual watch for me. There's some Rugrats episodes. You can find the full list over in the blog, over at bmovies.blog, which is always linked in our description box. But Arnold's Halloween, where, as a prank, Helga and Harold and Stinky and several other people basically pull a War of the Worlds. I believe Gerald is the one who does the podcast, the radio show. And they basically try to play a War of the Worlds prank on the adults that goes awry. And I just love Hey Arnold so much, and it's another one of those special shows like The Adventures of Pete and Pete where it can't be replicated. And so those are some of my favorite Halloween specials. Check out the full piece. Like I said, it'll be linked below. And that'll do us on that deep dive. So for our second deep dive, I want to talk about the Vintage 8 YouTube channel. And when I say I could spend hours talking about them, I could sincerely do like a 4-hour Wendigoon length video, because they have such a unique way of presenting these stories through like what appears to be stock imagery or stock photos and real life footage met with some voice acting, some AI voices, and it's just presented in this unique way, and it's so captivating to watch. And even with ones that don't have voiceovers and you're just reading entries on the screen, it's riveting. And they're another, I believe, that I found on Baz's channel, I think is how I got into them. I think that Baz reacted to the Tangivirus series, and I'm obsessed with them. And they're similarly to like how Stephen King does with Derry, Maine and Around Maine, or like how Chris Straub does with Icker Falls within his world of content, like with Local 8 or Local 58 and a lot of his written content. They're building this entire world that the nexus of it seems to be a town called Kate's Crossing, and so it's in and around that town, and they're building this whole universe where all of these series are just interconnected, and I can't look away. And I've watched so many of their series. I definitely have my favorites, um, and I just want to share them with you because I think that they're wonderful, and I think that they need more viewership and more subscribers, because to be annoying and to make this one of my catchphrases, if we ever do merch, I swear that there's going to be a shirt or a hat or something that says, "Look to YouTube for the future of horror." Because I know I keep saying it, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. So, I've chosen a few of my favorite series, 4 I believe. And so I'm just going to give you some overview on these. I'm not going to spoil it. No spoilers. So you can watch for yourself, see what you think, but I just adore them. So to start out, this is the one that I feel like if you're going to know anything from Vintage 8, I feel like it's going to be this series, which is The Children Under the House. And Vintage 8 is also really cool. Does this really cool thing where they usually mix all of the videos in a series into one big video, or you can watch in a playlist. They also have, and I'll link it in the description box as well, they have like a mega playlist for if you're just starting to watch their content. So they've like curated all of this for you in a way that's so easy to watch, and you can choose how you watch it. So if you want to do video by video because you're going to watch it while you're in bed or you're doing stuff and you want to be able to pause, that's great. Or if you want to sit down with a bowl of popcorn and watch it through, they have you covered too. So Children Under the House is the first one we're going to talk about. And The Children Under the House starts with someone coming across case files, VHS tapes in particular, when they purchase a repossessed storage locker. And these case files and tapes tend to belong to Dr. Julia Liu, who's a children's therapist in Kate's Crossing. And it seems as though she worked there from the late 70s to the early 90s, and she passed away a few years prior. And so once we start the media, we open on a voiceover, and it's a child drawing. And Dr. Liu is speaking to someone named John, and it's very similar to how Cooper talks to Diane on the tape recorder in Twin Peaks. That's the similar vibe. And she's talking to John about Jessica, or Jess, which is what we learned she prefers to be called. And Jessica is a new patient that she's taken on. Jess's family has not allowed Dr. Liu to take on any of their likeness, but she wants to write a novel about this case because she's like, this case is crazy, like you're never going to believe this. And so she says that they did allow her access to Jess's drawings, so she can keep the drawings, but when they write the book, they're basically not going to be able to use, they're going to change some names and details. And so we come to find out why Jess is meeting with Dr. Liu is because she stopped speaking when her family moved to Kate's Crossing. They moved into the Clark house, which was owned by an elderly couple who also owns a burger joint in town. Jess, when they first moved there, started having these nightmares and made claims that there were people under the house. She was adamant that there were people under the house. So her dad tried to take her into the house to show her no one was under there. She was terrified, and ever since then she hasn't spoken. She basically screamed and cried until her voice gave out, and she's not spoken since. But they have been able to determine that it's not physical. It's psychosomatic, is why she's not speaking. And so she communicates through these drawings, and that's the child that we saw drawing at the beginning. That's how Jess speaks. So I'm going to briefly run through this part just for context, but Jess's family situation is not ideal. Her mom is harboring a lot of ill will towards her father because her father moved them from this town, and it led to Jess now not speaking, and that, you know, they just upped and moved. Her father's a workaholic. He's rarely home. It's clear that work is more important than the family. And then she also has a stereotypical moody teenage brother. And so throughout these sessions, and with the help of Jess's drawings, a tragic story unravels about the children under the house and how they got there, and how Jess was not having nightmares or playing pretend, that she was seeing some things, and I won't spoil it for you, but it's masterfully told. The actions are incredibly cruel, and you won't be disappointed. And this story is so good. I know that I want to preserve the sanctity of things, but I also would love for someone to make a movie out of this. Oh my gosh. And just have whoever plays Jess not speak during it. It would be so good. But yeah, so that's The Children of the Stairs. And so the next series, because like I said, they have several. The next series, which is my second favorite, is It Lives in the Static. And this one I watched when I was researching this piece because I hadn't seen it before, and I couldn't look away. There were times where I would realize I had stopped writing because I was so intrigued by the story. So with It Lives in the Static, our story begins as a man buys a house hoping to flip it or rent it. And the woman that he's purchasing it from says she'll knock a pretty penny off if he also agrees to clean out the place. She tells him that she rented it. This is the only part that's a little fuzzy for me. Because I'm not sure if she meant like she rented it and now she's selling it to him, or like if he's renting it and then he's going to flip it. I don't understand the logistics of that, to be honest. But everything else in the story makes sense. She tells him she only rented it one other time, and it was like 20 years ago, and it apparently ended very badly. It seems like the guy just kind of ran out and was trouble. So while our narrator, I'm not sure what to call his role within the provider of our analog horror, while he's cleaning out this woman's things, he finds this red suitcase that's full to the brim of VHS tapes and floppy disks. And it seems as though they're timestamps and they correspond with each other. And friends, as we all know, if you find a suitcase full of media, it's probably not a good thing. And I don't know how to tell you, but girl, you are in an analog horror series, so run as fast as you can away from that house, away from that suitcase. And so, spoiler, it's an analog horror series, and the tapes and discs appear to belong to a Randall Scott, who we can infer was the previous tenant from 20 years ago that the previous owner of the house was talking about. So it seems as though Randall starts hearing a voice within the static in his television who preys on Randall's vulnerability. He's going through a nasty divorce and custody battle. His ex-wife cheated on him, so he had to move out. He loves his son more than anything, but she's very controlling of the situation. And he also doesn't have a lot of jobs. Like, he's just really down on his luck. And this voice seems to know it and seems to prey on it. But unfortunately, a very monkey's paw adjacent storyline unfolds, leaving Randall fighting against whatever is living in the static. And this one, to me, I feel like could be a Stephen King story. It is very reminiscent of Stephen King to me, something you would find in like Night Shift, because to me, at times it really reminds me of the Boogeyman short story, which if you've never read it, if you've only seen the movie, read the short story, because where the movie begins is where the short story ends. So definitely check it out. So that is It Lives in the Static. number 2. So now we're on to number 3, which is the Williams tapes. And so my context and my preface for the Williams tapes are: these are connected to the Tangivirus series, which can also be found on Vintage 8's channel. Because the Williams tapes are like a spin-off of the Tangivirus. They're almost a prequel. I would argue they are a prequel to the Tangivirus. So like I mentioned earlier, all of this stuff happens in and around Kate's Crossing, so they're building like this Vintage 8 cinematic universe, and I'm here for it. So in the late 80s, Dr. Julia Williams, hence why it's called the Williams tapes, of Kate's Crossing Health Unit, because of course it's in Kate's Crossing, works to find a cure for a previously unknown disease that seems to be transmitted via water/fluids. The disease appears to be viral, and it begins spreading at a pretty rapid rate. And it appears as though the infected start dying due to complications from meningitis. However, after they start conducting autopsies, it appears that this virus is what will come to be known as the Tangivirus, and it's nasty. It basically gives humans like these little tumor-looking sacs that are filled with tapeworm-looking dudes. And it doesn't seem like it's from this planet. So Dr. Williams becomes obsessed with uncovering the truth and trying to find a cure, and the conspiracies run very deep. And I will warn that this one is very sad. It does end sadly. So prepare yourself. It's not a happy horror movie where when the sun rises, at least our final girls made it out alive. So definitely check that one out. I don't necessarily think you need to watch the Tangivirus first. I think honestly I would watch this first and then the Tangivirus, but know that they are closely related for reasons you'll see why. And then lastly, we have Sinkhole. And Sinkhole, again for context, this is indirectly connected to the Human Trials series on Vintage 8's channel. It's directly connected to the Oracle Project. And it also, I would argue, is connected to a lot of things within the Vintage 8 cinematic universe. So I would maybe start with Sinkhole if you're going to go down the Tangivirus Williams tapes hole. Maybe do Sinkhole, Williams tapes, and then the Tangivirus. If you're just looking for a one-off, know that there are still references within The Children Under the House and It Lives in the Static to Kate's Crossing, but you don't need, the Tangivirus is not involved in either one of those. So for Sinkhole, way back in 1990, which is even before I was born, a giant sinkhole suddenly emerges about 17 miles from Kate's Crossing. And so a construction company by the name of Dunnington Construction is hired by the local government in the area in an attempt to remedy and study this issue. Because it's this huge sinkhole. It's growing at an alarming rate. It's devouring everything in its path. And according to the prologue, one day it just stops. And no one knew why. And for 20 years, it's just laid dormant. Fortunately for us, and because this is obviously an analog horror series, a local fisherman has unearthed a series of tapes from both Dr. Jeffrey Baker and Landon Field, who were both involved with this project. Landon Field is from Dunnington Construction. He's the contractor that's been hired. And it's clear from the beginning, Landon is skeptical of this entire project. We learn for good reason. And he's only there for a paycheck, which, that's fine. We understand, the little terror, the terrors persist, but so do the little treats. I get it. And then good old Jeffrey, on the other hand, he seems to be fascinated and really, I'm trying to think of the right word here. He's just really fascinated and he really wants to learn about the sinkhole, but unfortunately he goes in a little bit too deep. So the majority of our story is told from Landon's POV. And it's told through like diary entries and some footage. After Dr. Jeffrey Baker is Landon is then left on his own to investigate the sinkhole, or as the media affectionately named it, Pac-Man, a cult, a governmental conspiracy, and a sentient AI. Wowza. So that is Sinkhole. Like I said, I would probably, if you're gonna dive into like the bigger Vintage 8 cinematic universe, I would do Sinkhole and then the Williams tapes and then the Tangy virus. Excuse me. Ooh. So those are my favorite Vintage 8 series. Like I said, they do this captivating thing where it's like stock images and stock footage and some intermittent made content and made, I just lost my train of thought, but you know what I'm trying to say, like intermittent shots of real footage that they've done. And it's so simplistic, but I think that's the beauty of it, is they don't get wrapped up in the details. And these are such captivating stories, and they're such unique stories. And I'm a sucker for a good town where a bunch of crazy stuff happens. I loved Erie, Indiana as a kid. Like, I love this idea that there's so many offshoots, you know, and like with Stranger Things, for example, the Duffer Brothers have talked about that even though this part of Stranger Things is going to be wrapped up, that there will be more things in Hawkins. And so I just kudos to Vintage 8. Like I said, I'll link their channel in the description below, and I'll link the big playlist in the description below. But give them a follow, watch their stuff, share it, because it's wonderful, and it needs to be seen, and it deserves to be seen. So, with that deep dive finished, let's do a quick recap up the top, do a good little bookend here. Monday, we talked about the Halloween franchise. Tuesday, my favorite animated movies and Halloween specials. Wednesday, new metal horror. Thursday, Vintage 8. Today we talked about the Friday the 13th franchise, because there is no way we were not going to talk about the Friday the 13th franchise on Friday the 13th in October. And then tomorrow is I Am Not Your Final Girl, which you can buy Claire C. Holland's book anywhere. It's available on Amazon. I'm sure you can find it at your local bookstore, and honestly try to find it at like your local bookstore before you buy it off Amazon. And then Bite Size Sunday will be out Sunday. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. I am at Lisa_Frankenstein_. Be sure to follow Elliot, who is reading.with.red. Like, share, and subscribe to the B Movies channel. While you're already here, you might as well. We do new videos every single Friday at 2 p.m. CST. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. We are at B Movies channel, same as our YouTube. And be sure to subscribe to the blog. Just bmovies.blog, subscribe to it. In October, you get 6 pieces of weekly content. And then every other time of the year, you get 5 pieces of weekly content. And then on Sunday, subscribe to our Instagram, you get another piece of content. And on Fridays, we do blog roundups on the Instagram and the video. You have so much content to watch. You have so much content to read. Get on it. And then, just as always, thank you to everyone who has supported us. I appreciate you all so much. Like I said last week, we're coming up on the year anniversary in January. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Elliot and I have talked about it. It's crazy. So just keep liking, keep watching, keep subscribing. We love all of you. And so with all of that, the only thing left to do is fade to black.